Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the third and last of a three-part series on VMware's Tanzu platform for DevSecOps enablement. I'm Eddie Zapata. I'm a solution architect with Government CIO, and like you, I'm very excited to see what our presenters will be sharing with us today. But before I introduce the speakers, I'd like to recap for the benefit of those in the audience who were not able to participate in our previous sessions. Government CIO is a longstanding partner of the Department of Veteran Affairs, and as such, we're always searching for tools and methods to help empower the VA's digital transformation strategy. As a retired Marine myself, that is very near and dear to my heart. So as a result of the VA's recent announcement of their 7 new DevSecOps priorities in early December, we've invited subject matter experts from VMware to inform us on their leading edge Tanzu platform. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Chad Story. Chad is a Senior Account Executive, Cloud Automation, VMware Federal, and John Carty. John is a VRA Salt Stack Automated Lead, VMware Federal. They're going to provide us with an overview of VMware's vRealize suite, which includes Salt Stack Automation, a purpose-built management solution for the heterogeneous data center and the hybrid cloud. After the presentation, Chad and John have also graciously agreed to participate in a Q&A session with us for those of you who would like to stick around. Chad, I'm going to turn it over to you as our first speaker. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Like we mentioned before, we're talking about cloud automation today and how it's going to impact the VA as they're looking at transitioning into a hybrid cloud platform, meaning having your traditional data centers and also be able to leverage the great cloud providers such as Azure, AWS, GCP from that standpoint, and simplifying how the VA can actually move workloads directly into a private data center or up into a cloud and bring it backwards and forwards through a simple management control plane versus connecting into your traditional tools or your individual tools of controlling like the Azure portal or coming into AWS's portal and doing workloads this way. So with vRealize automation, we provide this very simply by being able to provide the capabilities of doing this. So I just flipped over to a live screen of doing a live demonstration where we have the vRealize automation tool. And vRealize is actually a complete suite of tools to help the VA and customers to actually run their data centers, both on-prem and up into the cloud providers and making it very simplifying. From this standpoint, you'll see a brand new GUI interface with our vRealize automation. And here we can actually start off very simply at 5 different areas where we have cloud assembly, where we can actually build our blueprints, our JSON blueprints, our YAMLs. We can go into code string, doing some CI development work. We can go into orchestration, so I can actually add a disk, remove a disk, add memory, do whatever the cases might be through scripting or through artificial intelligence. And then later on today, we'll John be talking about Salt Stack configuration. And lastly is the service broker, where you can actually provide a portal to your end users, or you can integrate vRealize automation into ServiceNow or Remedy help desk solutions, where you can leverage their workflows and connect directly to vRealize automation to deploy a workload directly on-prem or up into any cloud provider that you have associations with. So today, if I take a look really quickly at cloud assembly, I just want to show you how easy this is to build a blueprint. And we'll go ahead and deploy some stuff up into AWS from this perspective. So as you can start seeing, I have a deployment. I created one earlier called GovCIO1. If I come into the design phase, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of blueprints or templates where we can actually deploy on-prem into a cloud. You can do a multi-application. So if you want to deploy a web tier, a database, some load balancing, we can do that directly in here. But if I just click on the GovCIO blueprint from this area, what you're going to actually see is, as we pull this up, is you're going to see really how we can integrate directly into other solutions. So in this particular case, on my left-hand side is my navigation, where I can actually bring over a virtual machine, a load balancer from that perspective. I could actually connect in to Kubernetes. So we're talking in the earlier sessions about Tanzu. How do we bring in Tanzu and bring in Kubernetes and do containers? We easily integrate with anybody's containers and be able to leverage that Tanzu capabilities, both on-prem or up into a cloud provider. As we start scrolling down a little bit further, you start seeing some of the great ways we actually integrate. So No surprise, we have integration with vSphere. So I can do virtual machines with VMware directly on-prem from that standpoint. I can leverage our virtual networking, our NSX platform, to build networks both on-prem or once again, connecting up into an AWS or Azure GCP environment. And if I start coming over here, you can see I can actually grab an EC2 instance. I could grab S3 for the storage standpoints. I could go route 53 with DNS. So you start seeing that we have full integration directly in with AWS natively. So this tool, you don't have to leverage vSphere. You can actually utilize this tool to actually deploy workloads directly up into AWS. Or in this case, if I go scroll a little bit further down from this perspective, let me expand this out. There we go, a little slow this morning. It is a field demo. But if I scroll down a little bit further, we can actually see, I can actually do a lot of stuff in AWS. If you have Ansible, Ansible Tower, Puppet, we connect in. So you don't have to throw away anything you've been leveraging for the last few years. You can actually integrate directly into us. As you can see, we have GCP. And then from that standpoint, we also have Azure capabilities where we can connect into their DNSs. We can do key vaults. I can connect into PaaS offerings. But from this standpoint, if I want to come up here and I'll show you how easy this is, I'm going to come back up to AWS. I'm going to grab another S3 EC2 instance. And from here, it's actually leveraging my access into AWS. It's going to let me know what I need. So using role-based access controls of what's defined already inside AWS, we're pulling down those settings into your system. And I can actually pick an image. So in this case, I'm going to pick another Ubuntu 18. And because I want to be a good corporate citizen here at VMware, I'm going to pick a T2 medium and be able to provide that capabilities. It's that easy. And now if I just say here and deploy, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to use the current draft. So we maintain version control history. So that being allowed us to do is I can go back. So if you made a change on a Friday and it's not working correctly, we can go back to Thursday. I can go back to a previous week before it was modified. So we do maintain those capabilities. And I used that name earlier. So let me redeploy this one. And as you can start to take a look here, if I start looking at the background, what's going to happen here is vRealize automation is actually going to deploy up into AWS. We're connecting in. We have a cloud machine that's just done on-prem, but we're going to connect up in here to AWS. As you can see, we're allocating. We're talking to the APIs inside AWS right now to deploy an EC2 instance from this capabilities. And you can sit here and watch this capabilities. But how convenient is this to be able to provide a single platform to be able to provide workloads both on-prem and up in the cloud without flipping over to a different browser tab or be able to provide those capabilities. It could be, like I said, Ubuntu, CentOS, anything that AWS, Azure, GCP supports, we support natively as well. So we can actually create a really complicated application if we wanted to. You could actually have load balancers in AWS and on-prem talking to each other and be able to provide a highly available application interface, both for on-prem and if something fell over in your data center, we can fill up into an AWS instance, or you want to do load balancing from that perspective. So it allows you to have these capabilities where I can come directly into the solution. And this is the point that VMware wants to do. We want to become the number one, which we are today with the cloud management platform, but be able to connect into the automation and simplify the VA's task at hand of as they do a data migration into the cloud and they start leveraging those capabilities to be able to leverage these tools today. As you can see, it keeps on building. We're creating. It's actually finished. We're going to start powering up the AWS EC2 instances. And once again, I never left and opened up a new tab to connect into AWS. Why you never went over to vSpheres and to vCenter's console and said, build a machine. I did this all directly through here. And this is the power. And then, like I mentioned before, if you connected this into ServiceNow or to a Remedy help desk system, you can actually have these workflows. Now you get a complete configuration management database. You can actually have open a ticket, close a ticket, and have business ownerships of who owns this virtual machine, what's it doing, and who's going to be ultimately responsible for it. So as this continues to build out, I can actually flip over into another area I would like to show you. And this will actually look at our service broker. As I mentioned before, if you're not leveraging a ServiceNow or Remedy, we can provide a portal, once again, based off your LDAP credentials, use a role-based access controls of what you can actually deploy. So you notice in this case right now, I have 2 VMs counted, 3 CPU counts. This includes, it's counting up inside AWS where I've deployed. If I was in Azure or if I was up in someplace else, it's going to calculate and watch what I'm using on my usage. So very powerful. I can tell my personal account, I'm using 2 VMs with 3 CPUs, 28 gig of memory, 5 gig memory. So I'm personally responsible for this. But when I come into my catalog, I can actually come into the solution here and I could have, think about it, you could have a Windows 2019 hardened data center image. And that's all you have to have. It could be deployed, that single blueprint could be deployed on-prem, it could be deployed up in AWS, it could be deployed natively into Azure from those capabilities. And you can actually have different variables. So if I come into this deploy open cart, which actually builds out a web server and some load balancing, you can actually see I can actually have different fields from this perspective. So I can actually have, what's your operating system? How many processors? How much disk space? And you can actually have parameters where if I trigger, I want an 8-core machine, I can't have 8 cores or 8 virtual CPUs. It has to go to my manager for approval. So I can actually come into the solution and provide this. So we're really allowing customers to have their own variable fields to come into a solution to be able to deploy same workloads, same operating systems into multiple locations and make it very simple from this capabilities. So if I was a DBA, I could deploy a database, SQL, MySQL, Oracle, whatever the case might be. If I'm a system admin, I could be doing this. If I am a business owner, I could run my own VMs if I had permissions and be able to run them and have a cost and a show back to myself. So this really allows us to provide this automation capabilities to be able to keep going forward. So the kind of cool thing is why I got really excited, we acquired SaltStack, and SaltStack was a great acquisition because it actually does a lot of configuration management and enforcement, and it just really ties into vRealize automation. And at this moment, I would actually like to turn this back over to my partner, John Carty, directly involved with SaltStack, and let him take a few moments and talk to you about why SaltStack and vRealize automation provides a great capabilities together and that we want to embrace into the VA. John?
Excellent, Chad. Thanks very much. Can't ask for a better introduction than that. And Eddie, thank you again for getting us teed up, and my thanks to everyone at VA for being here today. Let me do a quick screen share, see if I can pass technology test number 1. Eddie and Chad, if you wouldn't mind, just let me know if those slides are visible right now. Very good. All right, so folks, thanks again for being here. My name is John Carty. I was part of the acquisition of SaltStack by VMware back in October. Prior to that, I was the Senior Area Director for Federal, both in the US and in Canada. My background is a little bit like Eddie's, so I was a systems architect for most of my career and was very excited to join SaltStack about three plus years ago. So we don't always have necessarily the best known brand name, although VMware knows who we are now that we've been acquired. So it helps sometimes to talk about where we are before we dive into what we are. So SaltStack's been in business for 11 years doing intelligent automation. And as Chad said, we pick up where VRA leaves off in instantiating and monitoring and managing workloads. We'll talk about what that means. But just thought it might be helpful to share with you where this has been deployed over the last nearly 11 years. So next time you go to LinkedIn, you'll be walking through a field of about 250,000 nodes, server nodes that SaltStack manages for LinkedIn. I like the IBM story. IBM and Cisco together chose SaltStack to handle full configuration, patch, remediation lifecycle on the network fabric that actually hangs together the IBM private cloud. So again, we're not necessarily the best known company in the world, but we are quite well known to our existing customer base. As you can see in the middle, those mostly are my customers as the former head of Federal at SaltStack. Lots of referenceable sites, both in commercial and federal accounts. I also wanted to call your attention to lower right-hand corner, a couple of things we're kind of proud of. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has just released the executive summary for a new SP 1800, new special publication called Passionate Cybersecurity Enterprise. We, SaltStack, have been working with NIST and several other partners for over a year on this project. And we, SaltStack, are in fact the automation core of NIST's new recommended reference architecture. So strongly recommend you to that. The executive summary was just published, I believe, last month, and more to follow as the year rolls out. And finally, we'll be happy to make this content available in the lower right-hand corner in green. One of the things that SaltStack is charged with and was taken on is scale. So we set up actually a 1.1 million node infrastructure on AWS. I'm sure the Amazon guy was quite happy with his commission that month. And we actually deployed SaltStack to 1.1 million nodes. And there's a fun little YouTube video of that at that URL. So point being, we've been deployed to a lot of companies. So that's where we are. Now let's talk about what we are. So our founders come out of a space very similar to where you all come from, and where Eddie and I have spent a lot of our time working. I spent most of my career in boutique systems integrator, deploying the IBM Tivolis and HP OpenViews and CA Unisoners of the world to the Air Force and to the Army and to GE and some fairly large customers. And when I first looked at SaltStack 3 or 4 years ago, I found, wow, this is what we've been trying to do for years. So our founders, Tom Hatch and the team, come out of the same space here. They were, Tom was running a IT operations group responsible for fairly large disparate fleet of servers. So see if any of this sounds familiar. Tom owned patching and configuration and problem solving and remediation and so on for Linux and Windows and a whole fleet of network gear. And this was at a software as a services company. So Tom and his team also had a constant inbound flow of new software coming over the transom, and had to do early intervention with what is now called the CI/CD pipeline, but which back in those days was just, hey, here's development, toss it over. So the concept of SaltStack came out of, gee, wouldn't it be great if we could take the intelligence of what is proper state? What's the definition of the proper configuration of a Windows server or a Red Hat server or a Windows desktop or a Mac desktop or a Cisco router, or pick your device. And rather than having to do individual vendor-specific and OS-specific patching and configuration monitoring and so on, wouldn't it be great if we could push that intelligence out to the endpoint, have it monitor itself for proper configuration, and have it heal itself in the event of a configuration drift? That, in a nutshell, is what SaltStack considers to be intelligent automation. So what we do, and this is very high level, I'm happy to drill into as much detail as we like in the Q&A. But through SaltStack's lens, we provide infrastructure as code to the IT operations and dev operations teams. We provide automation and configuration for the software-defined network. So we are not the network devices, but we provide that full lifecycle management for hub, router, switch, firewall, load balancer, either physical or virtual. And for the folks in the security shop, we provide continuous compliance. Monitor for compliance, monitor for vulnerabilities, keep a constant eye on what the current state is, and in all cases, provide remediation. In SaltStack's view, the way we view the world, all three of those are variants of the same job. That's what we consider to be intelligent automation. So it includes all of what you see there, managing patching and configuration rules and monitoring the current health of the system, current viability of the application stack. Self-healing is at the core. And then beyond what happens in an individual endpoint, SaltStack provides significant amount of orchestration, scheduling, and so on, just to make sure that we're good corporate citizens. So that's what we do. SaltStack does, and we've been at it for a long time. Where we do it is down in the green. So we use this diagram quite a lot with our customers just to help carve out, where would you like to start? Because intelligent automation across an enterprise is a big task. So in the interest of not boiling the ocean, we might say, well, do we want to work on patching for Windows, or patching and configuration for Linux and Windows? Or maybe this is a patch management thing for the desktop. Or maybe here in Boston at Liberty Mutual, we are tasked with managing configuration, patch, and rules resetting for the firewall fleet. That's a big part of Liberty's perimeter protection strategy. So what we're doing there is we just carve out quite literally, what is the crawl, walk, run strategy? Where would you like this to look? And in the final picture here, we use this diagram quite a lot, but the final component is over in yellow. As Chad mentioned, extensive integrations into the ServiceNows and BMC remedies of the world, for example, to not only integrate with the rules workflow, the ticket flow, but also to keep the CMDBs up to date. We share our detailed configuration information and histories directly into, for example, the ServiceNow configuration items. The integrations with VMware, no surprise there. We've been working alongside VMware for years prior to the acquisition, and we're very well plugged into VMware strategies. And now, as you'll see going forward, we are literally plugged into the product set. So anyhow, this diagram sort of shows what SaltStack does, where we do it, how we go about doing it. We could spend an entire day just drilling into this, but in the interest of time, I just want to give you the overview. So from an architectural perspective, again, sort of boiling it down to a very simple essence, we took the approach of doing master agent hub sub. That, in our view, in the view of a lot of the analysts, is how you get the combination of very high scale, very high performance, and very high security. So think of each endpoint as having its own agent, either on board or nearby as a proxy in the case of network devices. And then the public-facing, the externally-facing component is above that event bus line. That's the only part of SaltStack that faces the outside world. So a couple of things there. Your endpoints are not security compromised by having holes punched in their firewalls or lots of direct connects. The master places jobs or updates or requests on the event bus, and the agents for each endpoint pick up what's appropriate to them. Similarly, any change is put on the bus and picked up that way. So it's a very elegant architecture, and it's what enabled us to scale to the hundreds of thousands of devices we have in place. We did include also, and happy to share this with anyone who'd like to see it, but SaltStack has been well covered by the industry analysts in the infrastructure and cybersecurity space for years. So these are just some of the analyst reports that are useful. One in particular that I like, and I would call your attention to, I'm kind of a fan of Forrester's Wave approach. They tend to go quite deep into their solution set. And this particular piece, this particular Forrester Wave is on infrastructure automation platforms. That's actually the title down in the middle. And the quotes, the references are actually from Forrester. So in terms of positioning where, what is the infrastructure automation marketplace? It's a big task. It's a big space. So Forrester calls out, correctly in our opinion, that configuration management is not in fact infrastructure automation. It's a subset of infrastructure automation. And in that space, Forrester would call out, and be interested to hear how this tracks with VA's experience. We frequently find on the Linux side of the house, configuration managers are generally one of Puppet, Ansible, Chef, or us, SaltStack. We're generally the big four in the Linux space. In the Windows space, it's generally SCCM from Microsoft or SaltStack. And then as you can see down below, there's still plenty of HPSA BigFix out there. HashiCorp is doing a nice job coming into the space. And no big surprise, here in our federal practice, we've been replacing a lot of SolarWinds recently due to their unfortunate security events. I call these out because this is generally recognized as the configuration management part of the space, and you all might recognize some tools that you're using today. Where SaltStack comes in is first and foremost, as Forrester calls out, we're a platform. We are an infrastructure automation platform. So we built SaltStack to be very configuration management friendly. A number of our customers have already made investments in Ansible or Puppet or Chef or CCM or Terraform. Investments in both money, but also expertise and potentially development, custom playbooks, custom recipes, and so on. So we built SaltStack, we enabled SaltStack to be able to ingest a lot of that work so that it can be reused. But then, as we mentioned, configuration management is just sort of the first step in enterprise automation. From there, SaltStack takes it into actually creating a self-healing infrastructure, healing from configuration drift, patches that need to be updated, cybersecurity flaws, either because an installation changed something or something wasn't set properly, or maybe there's a bad actor out there actually trying to get into your systems by banging on doors or hacking on ports. That's what SaltStack does, is it gets you to that self-healing place. We do it cross-platform, as we've mentioned, both Windows and Linux, commercial Unix like AIX, Solaris, HPUX, and the network devices. We do scale to very high volume. We've proven that multiple times. We actually built SaltStack to do that. And along with scale comes high performance and high security. So if you do get a chance to watch that fun little video, you'll see our CTO, Tom Hatch, walking you through a demonstration of first scanning and then remediating to 1.1 million servers in under 2 minutes. It's quite fun to watch. So that's what SaltStack does. That's what we deliver. And sort of as a side benefit, the final bullet there, is SaltStack provides monitoring, threshold management, and process and log watching because we have to. That's part of what we do to do our job. So that's just a bit of coverage from the analysts. So now up to last October. As I mentioned, we, SaltStack, have been working alongside VMware for years. I've considered VMware to be one of our best and most productive technology partners. So at the time of the acquisition, we were quite happy with it. And the way that this has been rolled out, just sort of product-wise, the product that Chad just showed you, vRealize Automation, that is the landmark automation tool for virtualized infrastructure from VMware. SaltStack's infrastructure as code capability, which I just walked you through, is actually included as part of vRealize Automation. So that's very exciting for us at SaltStack because we are now in discussions and conversations we might not have been in before. And from VMware's perspective, it substantially increases what VRA brings to the table. In fact, to look at it sort of from a different lens, I'll take this diagram and flip it around to VMware's view. Some of you may have seen this picture before, but this is what VMware does. Down in the very tiny font, I'm surprised sometimes that the font is so small. But the core products from VMware, as you all know, are virtualized compute, virtualized storage, and virtualized network. So vSphere, NSX, and vSAN. Those are the big virtualization capabilities also VMware brings to the table. So the fourth leg of that stool is the multicolored layer cake you see up above. This is the go-forward strategy for VMware, as has been articulated in public and behind the scenes, including when we were acquired. But the whole consistent infrastructure, consistent operations solution set, that's what this layer cake is. That's the fourth leg of the VMware product stool. So vRealize automation, which Chad just showed you, some very exciting capabilities around developing service panels, costing models, just helping you manage and get proper behavior out of your vSphere fleet. That's where SaltStack has been plugged in. So quite literally, the words to us from VMware, just before we acquired, were, SaltStack, you are those two gray boxes on the right. You are to be the software-defined data center infrastructure automation engine of VRA, and you are to be the entire software complete, so the software stack manager, how you build up and monitor and, if necessary, remediate not only the operating system, the application layer, middleware layer, database layer, the web services layer. So as you can see, VMware has made a pretty substantial bet to take automation into the next generation so as to give you the best possible behaved virtual environment. So as Pat Gelsinger put it to us, which a number of us at SaltStack are quite happy to hear, SaltStack, your job is to pick up where VRA leaves off. Take those well-behaved, well-structured, well-modeled, financially tracked vSphere VMs and provide the entire rest of the circuit. So that in a nutshell is what SaltStack is, where we fit, and where we're going forward. And with that, Eddie, happy to turn it over to Kiana.
All right. Hey, thank you, guys. I'll tell you, that was very informative. I love the way you guys simplified the complexity. Seems like it's very easy tool to use, easy navigation. Love it. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and open the floor up to questions, and we're going to test these guys, see what kind of stuff, what additional information they can share with us. So let's take a look here. How does SaltStack differ itself between Ansible, Puppet, and Chef? Who could take that one?
Chad, if you don't mind, I'll grab that one.
Sure.
So that's a great question, and that's usually where companies who are not familiar with SaltStack start. So recall the slide where we called out the configuration management tools: Ansible, Puppet, Chef, Terraform, SCCM for Windows, Radia, SolarWinds, BigFix. I'm leaving out a few. There are quite a few configuration management tools out there. So SaltStack provides configuration management, but we are not solely a configuration manager. When we look at the intelligent automation solution, for us, the ability to deliver a properly specified, properly patched, up-to-date image of Windows 2016 or Windows 2012 or Red Hat 7 or the latest version of Cisco, whatever it is, the ability to deliver that to an endpoint for us is table stakes. So yes, we provide configuration management, and I'll include in that configuration and patch. As you can imagine, from our perspective, we look at them as variants of the same job. How do we keep the system up to date? So the way that we compare, and the comparison is most frequently with Ansible or Puppet, which we come across quite a lot. So the primary differences are these. First, we were built to do the large-scale, multi-100,000, high-performance, highly secure automation at the endpoints, which is was not really what Ansible, Puppet, and Chef were built for. They do an excellent job at providing the ability to define and deliver configurations. Ansible in particular took the agentless approach. This is pre-acquisition by Red Hat back in the early days, so as to make it easier to stand up and deploy. So the advantage of that is simplicity. But in production, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples, in production, the challenges are that doesn't necessarily scale beyond 5, 6, 10,000 servers. And in many cases, there are security considerations that are raised because essentially we're not managing the process at the endpoint. So if you had to summarize the key differences between, say, Ansible and Puppet and SaltStack, they would be the combination of scale, performance, security, and the whole end-to-end life cycle. We provide full life cycle management, monitoring and self-healing beyond just the delivery of configuration. Thanks, it's a great question.
Nice. So on top of easy to use, easy to navigate, we've also added, sounds like it's very comprehensive.
Yes, sir.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, we're going to take the next one here. Let's see. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank your organization's automation initiatives, particularly on time-intensive, human-intensive tasks like patch configuration, complex operation workflows, and integration amongst IT solutions?
Good question, Chad. It sounds like we're being challenged as to how would we listen to the voice of the customer with a question like that. So yeah, again, if I could take a crack at that one, I'm going to sort of dip into my own background. That's a variant of a question that we actually often put to our customers. When we look at automation, what is it we're trying to automate? And I'm going to propose the following and see what kind of response we get from the audience. But we're largely trying to automate those tasks which A, put the organization at most risk, B, take the longest or cost the most to get done, and C, are the most human intensive. Because those are the three things we don't have enough of. We get no credit if we haven't protected and secured the environment. There's never enough money, and there are never, ever enough people. So when, and again, this is, I may be biased here, but when I look at SaltStack, we rank actually pretty highly on those criteria. The more complex, time-intensive, labor-intensive tasks, the more of those there are, and the gnarlier they are, and the larger and more diverse the infrastructure they are, that's generally where SaltStack excels. Or to put it another way, in a relatively simple or smaller scale environment, you might not need all the SaltStack brings to the table. When you get into Windows, plus Linux, plus commercial AIX and Solaris and so on, plus network devices, and you lay security on top of that, and you scale up beyond 10, 20, 50, 100,000 servers, I give us a solid 9 in those big gnarly spaces.
Wow, that's a lot of confidence. I like it,
Yes,
John.
yes, sir. I'm an engineer by training, so I point more to my references than I do to my wonderful selling skills, because I don't know that I have any of those, but we've deployed it enough of times that we can prove it.
No, that's great. That's great. And I'll tell you, again, as a veteran, I know the VA is doing a lot of research on where they can do more automation. And I would appreciate a lot of that because it would expedite things a lot more. So that's great to hear. All right, we're going to move to another one here. Could I use SaltStack NetOps solution to manage physical and virtual network devices?
John,
Chad, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so basically, you're talking about network devices with SaltStack? Just repeat the question one more time. Yeah,
let's see here. Could I use SaltStack NetOps solution to manage physical and virtual networks?
Most definitely. So that's what kind of gets me excited about SaltStack when we acquired them and have them now part of the team here is not only is SaltStack going to work on virtual workloads, both on-prem or up into a cloud provider, but with NetOps, I can control any networking device. So as John mentioned before, we can connect to any endpoint, Cisco's, F5s, Palo Alto's, whatever the case might be, and we can enforce configuration changes. So think about the good old days if you have a huge network with Cisco devices and you might be using still secure ACS or Cisco's ACS solution, but now I can automate that. I can force the changes across very quickly. And then actually with Salt Stack module that we haven't talked about, which was SecOps, I can run security compliance across my networking devices, my virtual workloads, my physical servers. I can do a lot of capabilities. And now that provides my security, my internal auditors, a state of mind that says my configurations from operating systems to networking to firewalls is safe, secure, and no one's went in and there's no backdoors open that can allow someone to come in and access federal data. So that's a very big piece of Salt Stack. Not only is it doing the automation on operating systems, but networking devices and giving those security officers the ability to look across our whole entire enterprise and see a complete view.
Devices.
And Eddie, if I could tag on to a little bit of that, those are great. Chad totally covered it, but it raised a question that comes up sometimes and frequently in the network space, and that is, I'm going to paraphrase the question, but with SaltSec, is there any dependency or any assumption that these are vSphere virtualized workloads? Are these VMs provided by virtualization from VMware, and are they in fact even being managed by VRA? And this is particularly relevant in the network space, and the answer is no. So I give a lot of credit to our new owners who've embraced the idea that, of course, we want to provide better lifecycle management and automation to as much of the workload as you choose to deploy to private or public cloud or both. But there's also a significant chunk of physical gear, a lot of which is network devices, depending on age and technology and so on. There's some gear that's never going to be virtualized. It's just eventually going to be replaced. So everything we've talked about today, as Chad said, we could take this solution to every network device, regardless of infrastructure. Is it physical? Is it virtual? Is it in a DC? Is it in the line? Is it out at a site? We can take this level of automation from the core all the way up to the sub. You'll appreciate it, Eddie. I say that as a resident of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That's why I had the U.S. system New Hampshire in my background. But yeah, it's exciting for me as a longtime integrator. Is we've got the beef to handle multiple hundreds of thousands of endpoints, but we've got the flexibility to be down there, literally in the wiring cabinet.
Well, I'll tell you, John, between your confidence and Chad's passion and energy, I'm excited to get my hands on some of this stuff here.
Great.
Thank you. All right, let's field another question here. We got a little bit more time. With regards to activities like monitoring, scanning, remediation, and hardening, to what degree are your compliance solutions integrated into your IT ops workflows?
I'll take first crack at that. That's a great question. So the answer is very heavily integrated. So here's how this rolled out. You saw a little bit of the history of SaltStack. We were started out in life almost 11 years ago, primarily from an IT operations, DevOps, and NetOps perspective. Take care of the device, its operating system, the stack above it. We actually never positioned ourselves, SaltStack didn't, as a security company, but we had enough requests from customers over the years to add content to not only check for patch level and setting level and so on and provide remediation there too, but also, hey, can you run the STIGs? Can you run a SCAP scan? Can you do the equivalent of a CIS or a PCI or a HIPAA scan? Well, of course. I mean, not to be glib about it, but that's for SaltStack, that's simply taking those specifications. Here's what the STIG for Windows 2016 looks like. Here's what CIS compliant for Windows 10 desktop looks like. Those are checks. In SaltStack terms, that's what we put in our infrastructure as code content is what is the check to be run, and then what is the remediation to be handled. So in fact, not to minimize the great work that's been done by our engineering team, but adding SecOps, which SaltSec SecOps, which Chad mentioned, is quite literally additional content. So it's completely integrated into what SaltSec does. You don't have to go down that path. It's available as a separate module, but know that the approach is exactly the same. if you choose to, for example, automate the IT operations picture for your fleet of servers or desktops, network devices, whatever, and then add to that the STIGs or PCI or HIPAA or whatever else, it is in fact an incremental add-on. And I will tell you, Eddie, you'll appreciate the story. We first rolled out this additional content. It had been built by a number of our customers independently. But the challenge there is they were managing their own stuff, right? And they wanted us to be responsible for it. So we decided to productize what I just described, and we rolled it out as a product called SaltStack SecOps. We first exposed it at the RSA show about 3 years ago. The booth was jammed. I mean, we thought it was going to be popular, but you would think we were giving away, I don't know, free popcorn or something. I mean, it actually closed the loop, not only for traditional IT automation, but it closed the loop on cybersecurity, self-healing. It was, and again, some of those references we saw from the analysts will cover it in better detail than I did, but yeah, it's tightly integrated and to us, part and parcel of true intelligent automation.
That's great to hear it, because I'll tell you, in my experience, I've witnessed too little emphasis on the sec portion of DevSecOps, and I'm a big believer in, we've been used to this people, process, technology pillars, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as I think we've gone beyond entering the age of information, right? And I think information has become that fourth very important pillar. Again, someone with a military background, to me, that's become probably the most powerful weapon out there. And if we don't secure it well, it could be very detrimental. So that's great.
That.
All right, let's see. We got a little bit more time here. There's so many of these, I'm losing track. All right. Do you have an initiative to move automation to the left into your development pipeline?
Yeah, I love that question. So I'll speak a little bit just as a former developer, and then I'll ask Chad to sort of chime in. But again, short answer is yes. So one of the things that appealed to me in particular as a longtime developer and then a longtime integrator was solving that problem. Because Eddie, as you know, too many tools, especially big expensive ones, exist way out to the right. For those of you that are as old as I am and remember IBM Tivoli or HP OpenView or BMC Patrol, that stuff never existed in the CI/CD shop. Never existed in development. It was too big. It was like trying to park an aircraft carrier across the harbor at Portsmouth. We can take a battleship or submarine all day long, but there just isn't quite enough room there for a flat top. So yes, one of the things that excited us about VMware is they give us the ability as a company to show how we can take this automation and shift it left. And what that means is the developers will continue to be very rapid development. We totally fully support the CI/CD pipeline, both infrastructurally and process-wise. But maybe more importantly, we're giving the developers these tools so they can make calls, API level calls or data extract calls, whatever they need to do, so that as an application developer builds out a service or an installation or delivery package or a self-health check or whatever it is, we provide them with not only what's the current state of the infrastructure upon which I'm running, but how do I go about remediating it? We provide that to the development teams as well as to their production counterparts. So the goal for us is to enable our development cousins, folks who are developing the software for us, to deliver a package that is, as an application, self-healing and self-hardening. Chad, did I gloss over that too much?
No, perfectly stated. And now what I was going to say is within vRealize Automation, we kind of went over the feature. There's a product called CodeStream, which is a feature inside vRealize Automation that allows the true CI/CD type of development work for continuous development. So while developers are building out their code, they're also automating it as well. So right directly out of vRealize Automation, you get that. And then, as John just mentioned before, you integrate that with SaltStack, and we're constantly in helping out developers. So we definitely are focusing on that.
It's a great point, Chad. That's one of the things that's really exciting for us. Having SaltStack living as a product alongside a great piece of technology like CodeStream, we are all part now of a larger collection of tools that facilitate this stuff. Very exciting place for us to be.
Awesome. Great stuff, guys. All right. Running low on time here, but we got a little bit left. So we're going to move to another one. And I like this one because it relates very well. Can I use SaltStack with a public/government cloud provider?
John,
Chad, jump all. Yeah.
All right, I'll jump over it. I have no
I was
problem.
going to say either of us could do that one. Go for it.
Yeah,
Bert.
so the answer to that is yes. SaltStack can run and support any of the public or government cloud providers today, regardless, once again, if it's running native operating systems like Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, Microsoft, it does not matter to us. And actually, I think it's actually even more powerful when I take SaltStack and I put it inside a cloud, because regardless of the cloud provider, I can ensure if I'm in Microsoft Azure and I have, VLANs going on over there with their resource groups and networks and all that, I can enforce standards into that. Same thing on AWS, I can enforce standards. And as I mentioned before, then I can get a complete view across both different cloud providers, and I can actually show them to my security officer team and to my networking team that, hey, we're abiding to your rules, we're maintaining our standards and our posture, and we're providing a secure environment up in those cloud providers. So most definitely.
And that's well put, Chad. And Eddie, I think the audience might appreciate, just as there's a need to have a common set of tooling across the operating systems, ditto and maybe more so across the cloud providers. You don't want to have to manage AWS fundamentally differently from the way that you manage Azure, fundamentally differently from the way you manage GCP. That just reiterates the private toolbox problem. So as Chad said, not only can we run up there, we consider that cloud infrastructure a subset of the infrastructure for which we're responsible. And we provide that common set of tools, common look and feel, single pane of glass, regardless of who the underlying cloud provider is.
Again, sounds like a very comprehensive solution. That's great. Great package there. All right, we're going to take one more question here. Let's see. With SaltStack SecOps modules, can I run reports across entire data centers, cloud environments to show any discrepancies?
Yes, that's an easy one. So we enable that in a couple of ways. And as everyone can appreciate, there wouldn't be much value to the solution if we couldn't tell you what's the state of the state and what's the daily news. So yes, sort of working from the inside out, all of that information is available through the console and the data extracts and reporting that SaltStack provides. And it's available in a very high performant way because of the way we've architected SaltStack. So that's yes, number one. Yes, number two, a very common profile for our enterprise customers is to take the SaltStack data sets and either periodically or very regularly drop them into the Tableaus and Microsoft BIs of the world, so you can take advantage of your existing visualization tool sets. And finally, this is one that I really like. Again, this goes back to Liberty Mutual and a number of other customers. We are frequently sharing our data with Splunk-based or Hadoop-based or large data lake-based infrastructures, SIEMs, NOCs, and so on, so that data can participate in more deep dive analytics. So yes, in multiple ways.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're running short on time here, so I just want to say, Chad, John, thank you for all of that great information. I love the fact that you not only covered the technical aspect, but you also went into the business value aspect of the solution. So I know I learned a lot. I'm sure many of our members in the audience did as well. And I just want to say, in closing out this Tanzu platform series, I'd like to thank you for all the great knowledge and information both you and your teammates shared with us over the past few weeks. It's been great. And again, just thank you guys very much.
Our
before
pleasure.
Closing out, oh, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say back at you, Eddie, many thanks to the GovCIO team. This was just a fantastic thing to participate in. We really appreciate you making it all happen.
That's great. Thank you. And to all you DevSecOps enthusiasts out there, thank you for joining us. And as a reminder, if you were not able to join us for any of our previous VMware sessions or our Red Hat OpenShift series, they're all available online and accessible via the displayed link. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care, all. you.